With the first pick, the Philadelphia 76ers select Markelle Fultz from the University of Washington.
At the age of 26, the career of Markelle Fultz might be over already. Even if he does get signed and return back to the NBA court, perhaps on a minimum contract, the chance of him having a meaningful impact on any team is very low. Out of all #1 picks in modern history, no player has had this roller coaster of a ride like Fultz had. He's experienced more highs and lows than any other player from that class. Yet, despite all the tragic injuries, we held on to that slimmest possibility that he still had that monstrous potential in him. The potential we saw back in college of a player who could become the next James Harden or Paul Pierce, with his craftiness and deceptive athleticism. In fact, Fultz recorded one of the greatest freshman seasons in Pac-12 history. And while he wasn't the consensus #1 pick, he arrived at the draft combine as the best prospect of an incredible class. The 2017 draft will go down in history as one of the greatest ever, with already 6 different players making an all-star team, along with a deep pool of role players who are valuable contributors in all aspects of the game. Unfortunately, as the #1 pick, Markelle Fultz is a blemish on an otherwise remarkable class. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today in this video let's take a look at the most intriguing yet heartbreaking prospect in modern NBA history.
But to have a guy like this where offensively he's really got no holes in his game, he's a multi-dimensional scorer. He can change speed, change direction. He's 6'4", he's got a 6'10" wingspan.
Before Markelle Fultz even stepped foot on the NBA court, his name got plastered all over the headlines in the rarest of all draft day phenomena, the trading away of the #1 pick. It rarely happens. The Celtics held the #1 pick of the 2017 draft, with Fultz as the strong favorite to go #1, but he wasn't their target. At the time, the Celtics did not need any more guards. They needed a big, long wing player. Their target was Jason Tatum. However, another team, the Philadelphia 76ers, desperately tried to move up the board and draft Markelle Fultz. The Sixers held the 3rd pick that year and devised a trade proposal to the Celtics, where they'd give them the 3rd pick along with a future pick in exchange for the 1st pick. This trade was significant for multiple reasons. One, it catapulted the Celtics into a contender for years to come, with Tatum at the forefront of their success. 2, it bottlenecked the Sixers' rebuilding process. While they did find their franchise player in Joel Embiid, many of their high draft picks like Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor, Michael Carter-Williams, they all failed to live up to their potential. This 2017 draft was the perfect moment for the Sixers to turn their franchise around and add another star to complement Embiid.
Shot still looks pretty broken. What is going on with Markelle Fultz?
It was immediately clear that the Celtics got the better end of the deal, like they always do. The funny part is, the Sixers were never gonna draft Tatum under any circumstance. Reportedly, Coach Brett Brown loved Jonathan Isaac. Brian Colangelo liked him too, but he was also intrigued by Kansas wing Josh Jackson. Basically, everyone the Sixers were going for turned into a much inferior player than Tatum. So whatever decision they made, it wouldn't have worked out too well. Anyway, Fultz missed the majority of his first 2 years with what the organization described as a muscular imbalance in his shoulder. For several seasons, his injury was shrouded in mystery, cause it seemed like he forgot how to shoot a basketball overnight. The once invigorating point guard who captured the attention of fans across the nation lost everything and became a generational laughingstock. But what really happened with his injury? Initially, the doctor's diagnosis came up with nothing. The MRI didn't reveal anything broken or strained in his shoulder. The Sixers had no clue what caused him to completely lose his shooting touch. But they had to report something to notify the fans on why he can't play. So the team called it the yips. Basically, people thought Fultz was too nervous to play under the bright lights, and that he had anxiety. It led to critics claiming there was something psychological or mentally wrong with him as opposed to physical. Of course, you can tell this whole period affected his well-being, as Fultz fell deeper and deeper into his own insecurity. Even with all the hours upon hours of work put in, he still couldn't rediscover his shooting stroke because the feeling wasn't right. He described it as, quote, "When I would try to shoot, it almost felt like I had a too small suit jacket on. So I would try to go up, and it felt like somebody was almost holding my arm there." He had a very serious problem that nobody had any answer for.
Unusual hitch.
However, eventually, his right shoulder was reevaluated, and he got diagnosed with a very rare condition called thoracic outlet syndrome, a disorder that impacts the nerves between the shoulder and neck, which severely cripples his ability to shoot a basketball. This type of nerve condition meant Fultz had to relearn his entire shooting form, and it took a long time for him to develop a new version of his jump shot. After years of people laughing at him, mocking him, this diagnosis actually gave him closure. It finally made him realize, oh, there's nothing mentally wrong with me. He did actually suffer from a real injury, not just the yips like the Sixers called it. Regardless, through his entire saga in Philly, the team changed a lot. Ben Simmons emerged as the point guard of their future, well, at least for a little while, until he flamed out. Joel Embiid emerged as the franchise superstar. They had Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick, shooting guards who could actually, shoot. In a very short time, the Sixers went from tanking to contending, and they weren't interested in waiting for Fultz to develop. They gave him only like 1.5 seasons, but in this time frame, he only managed to appear in 33 games, and he wasn't that good. As the team moved in a different direction, so did Fultz. On February 7th, 2019, the Sixers traded him to the Orlando Magic, a brand new start for a player who desperately needed a change of scenery. And what better way than going to a team like the Magic, who wasn't rushing to compete, and frankly, nobody pays attention to them. They were slowly taking their time, methodically rebuilding their team and developing their youth. Theoretically, it should have been the perfect environment for Markelle Fultz to improve without the burden of expectations back in Philly. No longer feeling the pressure of competing right away, Fultz developed every aspect of his game in Orlando. He played 72 of the total 73 games in the COVID-shortened season, an accomplishment that nobody thought he'd ever be able to do after all he's been through. Everything about his first year in Orlando was a success. He recorded several 20-plus point games, several games of double-digit assists, several games where he just shot the lights out.
Anything right there, look at that. Oh my goodness.
And other games where he looked unstoppable driving to the basket.
Then count it for Markelle Fultz.
It was like, all of a sudden, the scouting report was true. He did, in fact, look like a blend of James Harden and Paul Pierce. Fultz's athleticism was deceiving, and his cunning change of pace made it hard for defenders to anticipate his next move. Finally, his immense talent and limitless potential is on full display at the NBA level. For a short time, his career was finally on the upswing, as he averaged career highs in minutes, points, and assists. More importantly, he worked his tail off to regain motion of his shooting arm, and cultivated a brand new shooting form that allowed him to actually, shoot. When he started hitting jump shots left and right, it was shocking at first, but his team quickly got used to it. In fact, he shot a ludicrous 46% on his long twos. Overall, his percentages outside the paint exceeded our expectations. Of course, he still had to work on his three-point shot, as that's something that takes a much longer time to improve on, especially after the nerve damage. Still, the outlook of Fultz's career was very optimistic. Sadly, it did not last. Just as his shoulder problems started to fade away, another injury hit him like a Mack truck.
Fultz driving on Okoro. He goes down and grabbing his left knee. Markelle Fultz. And you just hope and pray for the best for this young man who has gone through an awful lot.
In what looked like a routine drive to the basket, Fultz planted his left leg awkwardly, and immediately collapsed to the floor. Writhing in pain, it was obvious this was no ordinary injury. It was a full tear of his ACL, an injury that forced him to sit out the next 14 months. It's so sad. When his career looked like it was going somewhere, he suffered another major setback. His teammate Terrence Ross said it best. You hate to see this, especially for a guy who had already fought through so much and came back and was bawling. Fultz was legitimately having the time of his life out there, and it all came crashing down. The one bright side to all this is a month before this devastating injury, the Magic signed him to a 3-year, $50 million deal. I guess it's a bright side for him, not the organization. This injury took him much longer to recover than we thought, as he missed most of the next 2 seasons. Fortunately, Fultz's relentless work ethic led to another breakout year. After such a long time rehabbing, this guy does not quit. He came back very strong in the 2022-23 season, where he put up, once again, career highs across the board. He was phenomenal that year, and truly looked like the franchise point guard, who can grow alongside Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Not a lot of folks watched the Magic that year, so Fultz's comeback story was not a huge story. Despite being out for basically 2 years, he looked better than ever. That's kinda how it goes when you play for the Magic. No one really pays attention to you, so his highs and lows with the team were relatively unknown to the larger audience. And so, the Magic were at a crossroads. They could either keep Markelle and sign him to a new deal, or just move on, due to the risk of all his injuries. For a while, the Magic were looking for a replacement point guard, as they were unsure of how reliable Fultz would be going forward. But the fans had faith. Fultz had faith that he could build on this and reach the level he always dreamed of. Like he said, "I've been not ranked and had to work my way up to the top, and I've been the top player, #1 pick. I pride myself on just being one of those guys that's never going to quit and never going to fold." This mentality has carried him so far, but just how much further can his mind carry his body? Just like every other period of his career, there's always, and I mean always, another setback. Fultz entered the 2023-24 season with high hopes for himself, but he got placed on the inactive list for an extended period of time. Nobody knew what was wrong with him. There was a concern that his old nerve issues were coming back, but the Magic were very silent about his situation. Probably because they were trying to trade him on the last year of his contract. It was obvious when he did play there was something off. He was much more lethargic than the year before. Turns out, by the end of the season, the team revealed that he's been struggling with tendinitis in his left knee for the whole freaking year. This tendinitis essentially killed off whatever value he had left in the trade market. That's why the Magic were so quiet about this. They could not let other teams know he was damaged goods. Typically, after surgery on a torn ACL, tendinitis is a very common after effect, and it's why even after a successful surgery, it's so hard to return back to the courts and play at NBA level intensity. For the Magic, they were hesitant and uncertain. What if they re-sign Fultz to a long-term deal and the same thing happens again? What if he's just wasted space on the roster? They'd be committing a ton of money to a player who just isn't a surefire thing. There's no telling he could recover again from yet another obstacle. Fast forward to the 2024 offseason, and it has not been kind to Markelle Fultz. With the Orlando Magic ramping up their young talent and catapulting back to the playoffs, Fultz had very little to do with it. He missed half the season and saw his production severely drop, because he's not even a priority for the team anymore. It's all about their core duo of Wagner and Banchero, and the team has younger guards who don't carry the same baggage as Fultz. Am I surprised that Fultz has not been signed to a new team? Kind of. Everyone is worried about his injury history, but he's proven he can still contribute when healthy. Perhaps his story is not yet over, and maybe some NBA team might take a chance on him in the future. Anyway, that's all, folks. The story of Markelle Fultz is heartbreaking. From being misunderstood in Philly to a hopeful new start in Orlando to injury after injury, to not even signed to a team anymore, it's been a wild ride for the once exhilarating young player who saw the highest of highs and the worst of the worst. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank y'all so much for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.